Welcome to this week's episode of a live stream of Ask Jackie Gordon, the public speaking answer lady. Woohoo! Today's theme is what makes presentations a yarn fest and how to fix it. So I am Jackie Gordon, and I'm going to be talking to you about this subject, and I want to know who's out there in the LinkedIn land or Facebook land, or I guess even YouTube land. And I just want to let you know that this stream is going to go on for an hour. I am sitting here because I'm asking for you to give me any questions that you might have about engaging your audience, how to get paid to speak, how to sell from the stage, anything, how to be entertaining, how to make better presentations. So you can ask questions by putting them in the comments, and I will see them over chat, and then I will answer them. There may be a little bit of a delay on the answering, so just be patient and I'll get to you because there seems to be some sort of time thing going on, but I'll do the best I can and get back to you. So if you are out there and you're listening to this live, please wave by putting your name, saying hi in the chat, and I will wave back. I think I'm a little bit low in the seat today because I realized just now that I did not raise up my seat. But that's just the way it's going to be, little darling, says the song, as the song goes. So is anybody out there? Say hi. If not, I will catch you. Oh, I'm going to make sure the chat is actually overlaying this thing. Okay, and then I'm going to turn that on. So if you're out there, say hi, and we are about to begin. What makes presentations? Ooh, you know what? My computer's listening to me. My computer was listening to me, so it was typing everything I said. So that's always a delight. It's funny when you realize that, and then you read back what it says, and you're kind of like, did I say that? Or what's even funnier is when it completely misunderstands you, and you look back at it, and you're like, do I have a hand comedian in my pocket? Is my computer pulling my leg? So I won't read what it said. What did it say? Let me just look over here. Okay. Oh, I see a little profanity in what it said. Oh, did that come from me? It's so unlike me. So, yesterday I was having a conversation with, actually 2 days ago it was yesterday. God, everything becomes a blur. At a certain age, kids, I'm just telling you, everything becomes a blur. So I was having a conversation with a woman in my mastermind group, and we were talking, I was telling her this story, so I thought I would start this show with the same story, because this is sort of, in the very long run, why I created this presentation. So it was during the pandemic, and there wasn't a lot going on, and I had a friend, hello, Billy. I had a friend who asked me, sometimes you'll have a friend who's a friend of someone who's selling something online, and they'll be like, get their friends to enroll you into that. And then maybe they might give them a bit of money if you decide to buy whatever they're selling. So I don't know if that was the situation, but whatever it was, this friend of mine was like, oh, you got to meet this woman. She's amazing. You and her are very much alike. You should get in on and go on her Zoom, or I think it was some sort of webinar. And I was like, I don't want to. But it was during the pandemic, early days, baby, and there was not a lot going on, and she was very nice. And I thought, oh, she said this woman, and I could, I'm always looking for connections because I'm a connector. So don't, negate something unless you actually know it's going to suck. So I said, oh, you know what? I got nothing to do. Let me go on, and I'm going to hear what this woman has to say. So I go on this webinar, and the woman starts talking. And she's talking, and she's talking, and she's talking, and she's got like slides, and she's, whiteboard or whatever, she's writing stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, I have what did I call this? I said, I have telltale face. I have telltale face. I don't have like, I'd be terrible at poker because I'm sitting there like, And I'm trying, and what occurs to me is that I have no idea what she's talking about. None. She's been talking and talking and talking. And since I'm a speaking coach, I'm getting annoyed. I'm getting like, why am I here? Why should I be listening to you? What are you saying? I don't understand. I don't even know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. But the problem was there were only 3 people in this webinar. And if I left, someone was going to notice. So there was the pity part of me that was like, well, I don't want to leave because she's given this presentation and I feel bad. And I like the person who invited me to this thing. So I don't want her to know that I don't want this woman to run back and be like, Jackie Gordon left within 10 minutes. So I sat there and sat there and sat there. But I mean, literally my face had to been like, I was doing all the moves, and eventually I was just like, time for the Irish goodbye. I backed out. I was like, click. I said, I stayed on for 45 minutes. And in the end, I was just like, mommy is out. So that's what happens. That was a Yawnfest. I had still to this day, I have no idea what she was selling. I have no idea what she was talking about. So that's not good. And today we're going to talk about what makes presentations boring, and how to fix it, because you don't want to bore your audience, or because when you're speaking because you want to sell stuff or you want to influence people, you don't want to bore your audience because they're just going to leave. We got a lot of temptation out there in the world. We got these babies, these things, and we have lots of entertainment at our fingertips. So if you're going to present live from stage, or you're going to present from this way, like in a webinar or in a presentation or a live stream or video, whatever your jam is, you want to make sure that you're engaging your audience and you're not boring them so they hang around, or else it's just going to cost you. Oh, I actually made slides that went with this. I'm here yammering away, and I'm like spent the day making this slideshow. Ooh, let's look at him, folks. Let's see what I said. I said something. Oh, I got to figure out. I got to remember. Okay. This is how we make the slides go. So, come on, go. Oh, really? Okay, so we just skipped to number 2. Okay, my mantra, as you may, if you've ever seen my videos or you've listened on the live stream, is don't bore your audience. Don't bore your audience. Don't bore your audience. I'll always slip it in wherever I can, because I just want to remind people over and over again, do not bore your audience. And for me, I was talking about this the other day too, was the reason that I know this to be true is that I see a lot of speakers and a lot of people are not engaging the audience. They're talking in ways that they're just being boring. So I know that this is a common problem out in the world. And one of the things about me is, before I ever became a speaker, almost before I was ever even a performer, I lived in Australia. That's how we say it with our American accent. Billy, don't kill me. Australia. I lived in Melbourne, mind, and I went there and I was a performer, so I guess I was always performing. But I also taught cooking from the South, American cooking from the South, at the not the Culinary Institute, at the CAE. What does that mean, Paul? The something adult. Council for Adult Education, something like that. So I taught cooking, American cooking from the South. And in order to be a teacher at this school, you had to take a course called Train the Trainer. And I took the Train the Trainer course. And one of the things that stuck with me from that course was that all adults all learn differently. Adults do not absorb information the same way. So when you are presenting to people, you have to make sure that you hit all the ways that adults learn. And that is visually. Some people learn visually. Some people learn kinetically by doing. Some people learn by listening, by hearing things. I think it's called orally. And some people learn by reading and writing. So when you're presenting, or you're trying to sell from the stage, whatever you're trying to do, you want to make sure you hit all those marks so that you aren't losing parts of your audience. So that was just a little aside. That's a little aside to remember how adults learn. So what we're going to go over in this slideshow, in this stream, is death to boring, and my top 10 ho-hum generators. Ho-hum being boring and how to fix them. And also I'm going to talk a little bit about once you've lost the audience, how to get them back. So we move on. I love this slide. I thought I was being a genius today. So ha 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 ha. Do not be boring. Death to boring. Do anything that you can do not to be boring. And I'm going to give you like a zillion tips on how not to bore your audience right now. But I love that slide. The slides do not move quickly. So when you have people listening, they're giving you their attention. Their attention is like a gift. Wasting their attention, the slideshow moves slow. It's going to cost you money. So if you stand in front of them and you are not saying something that they're interested in, or that you haven't engaged them, or you're not entertaining, you haven't grabbed them, then it's going to cost you money. So don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. My God, I'm going to have to talk to these people. So, but it all comes back down to, hi, Carolyn. Why are you talking? This is the thing that I talk about a lot because it's my favorite question to ask people who want to sell, who rely on speaking to sell, is why are you talking? Why are you talking? Why are you talking? Why are you talking? Why am I talking? So you have to know who you're talking to and why you're talking for yourself. You have to know what's in it for you before you, and why. You got to ask yourself the 3 whats. The 3 whats, right? Because that's my favorite little list of W questions. W's, those W's, who, what, where, why. But this is the 3 whats. And the 3 whats are, what do you want? What do you want? Why are you talking? What's in it for you? That is the foundation of any time you stand on even a soapbox on the street to talk. You got to know, what do you want? And then you have to know what's in it for your audience. What are they going to get? Why were they even listening to you? Why would they buy what you're selling? And also, what you want them to do once they hear you talk. Now, that's a twofold thing. One is, what do you want them to do for themselves? You got to have like a CTA or a call to action. And the other is, what do you want them to do for you? So if you are trying to sell from the stage or from a video or from webinar, obviously, you want them to buy something from you. But that's not the only reason people speak. You could be speaking because you want influence. You could be speaking because you want to market yourself. You want to build an audience. So you've got to have a call to action for themselves that follows up whatever pearl of wisdom was in the speech you gave, or the presentation you gave, or the workshop you gave, or your video that you made. And you also want to have a little bit of a call to action for you, whether it's buy my product, or you could be getting paid to speak. So maybe you're not interested in selling. You don't have to sell yourself or sell a product, but maybe you got books in the back of the room and you want to sell those, or you want people to sign up for your mailing list, or you want them to connect with you on your social. So before you talk, before you create, before you craft anything, you got to have the answers to why are you talking and get those 3 whats in there. So that's the first step, kids. Once you have that, that's going to lead to your presentation. Now, we are talking about boring presentations, and we're going to start with my number 1 ho-hum, which I talked about on my first live stream, and that is failure to grab, failure to get to their attention. Now, this could be from the first moment, and often it is, that you say something, or even before that, when you write it in your title of your speech. Say you're speaking at a conference or something, and I always say, make it interesting, create curiosity from the get-go. But you want to make sure that whatever you say in that first 3, 7, 10 seconds grabs their attention, and you got to make sure you hold on to it. So the antidote for failure to grab is to say something funny. You could use a quote. You could start by telling them a story. Today, I started with the story about the lady who bored me during the pandemic. You could start with the problem. Today's problem is, don't be boring. Don't bore your audience. So you could start with saying, have you ever sat in a room and had to listen to someone who was putting you to sleep? That's a way to pose that question. I'm not going to go through all of these because we will not have time, because I'm already, I'm like 15 minutes in, and I don't want to make sure I get to all of these. So you could use props. You could change your voice. You could use a question. You could use shock. You could say something horrible that they're going to be like, what did you say? Imagination, you could give them a scene. You could tell them something that's a secret. You could razzle dazzle them by singing or doing a poem or maybe a tap dance. You could use a slideshow or some other sort of multimedia presentation. You can make it interactive. You could have a conversation directly with someone in the audience, or you could use something that's newsworthy. So those are all ways to grab attention. And if you look back at my earlier live streams, you will see that I did an entire show on how to grab people by the attention. Get those attentions, boy. Okay, next slide. Get it together, girl. Get it together. I hope I don't seem like I'm rushing. And if any of you guys have any questions out there, please, please, please add them in the chat or ask me anything in the chat. It does not have to be related to being boring. It can be related to any old thing. So, oh, sorry. Oh my God. Go back. Go back. Irrelevant information. So, irrelevant information is when you have a speaker who's speaking to an audience that isn't his audience, his or her audience. So once you figure out why you're talking, you have to make sure that you're actually talking to the right people. Otherwise, those people who are in the audience who don't care about what you have to say are going to be hella bored. So you do not want to bore them. You want to make sure that you're speaking to an audience of people who value what you're selling, that they value what you're saying, and they are willing to pay for your product if you are selling them something, or if you want to influence them in some way. Maybe you're in politics, or you're, I don't know, running for the school board. I don't know. But you know what I mean. So, but don't speak to an audience that's irrelevant to what your subject matter is. Unless, and this is my anecdotes for it, you are speaking to an audience as a way to practice what you want to say to another audience, like at a Toastmaster meeting, and you could tell the audience beforehand, hey, you're all going to be real estate professionals, and I'm going to be presenting at a conference for real estate professionals. So I want you to listen to my speech as if you were those people. That way you're framing it, you're reframing the audience so they are the people that you potentially could be speaking to, and they can listen to you from that light. So that can work. That's the only way that works when you're speaking to an audience that is not your audience. They could be, and they give you feedback based on the fact that they're pretending that they're real estate professionals. So that's number 2. Next up, we have flat sack, and it's not what you think it is. The flat person, the flat sack. I thought it could have been flat man, but I liked flat sack because there's some people who talk like this and they don't change their voices, and they give you, for the older people in the group, you'll know that it's the Howard Cosell. That was way too jumpy for Howard. The Howard Cosell experience. So they are very monotone and they don't show any emotion, and it's almost as if they're completely terrified and they're just trying to get through the presentation, and that will lull your audience into a coma. So do not do that. It's even hard for me to even try to do that. I can't do it. I'm too animated. But you know what I mean. There's people who are very monotone and dead-faced, and they need to do what, Jackie, in order to be better? They need to add oomph. They got to add passion, spark. What I say is they have to add variety to their voice, obviously, but they also need to add passion. If you're talking about something to your audience and you're talking like this, they're not going to get anything from you. You're not going to be a catalyst for them because you don't care about it. It doesn't sound like you care about it, so they're not going to care about it. So you want to put some excitement, you want to have enthusiasm, you want to put emotion, a bit of zeal in your voice, and also use your voice. Make sure that you're not staying in one pitch. You want to pace it faster and slower. You want to go up and down, all the things that make up with vocal variety so that you're not boring their ears so they're lulling them to sleep. We do not want to lull our audience. Don't bore your audience. So that is was that number 3? Number 4? I don't microphone. Me. Number 4 is me. This is one of my pet peeves. If you've ever gone to listen to someone speak or been trapped in a room where someone is incessantly talking about themselves, everything is in the first person, they're self-referential. This is how I feel about that. This is how I feel about this. Me, I. Overuse of I and me is going to put your audience, they're going to get mad. I find that I get mad anyway. I'm always like, why are you talking about? Why are you talking about yourself? The whole idea of speaking to an audience is that everything is for your audience. Every little bit of your presentation, of your sales pitch, of your show or your demo, it's all for the audience. So it has to be crafted, framed for them. Now, I'm not saying that when you are telling a story, which is really important, yeah, that's self-referential. I'm going to talk about my trip on the subway and how I fell down the stairs, or it's all going to be, that's going to be from my point of view. But what happens is that if you do that for your entire presentation, they're going to stop listening because it sounds preachy. It sounds narcissistic. It sounds like something you don't want to listen to. They want to hear about themselves. They want to hear you put them in the frame. And that is a much more powerful. That is a much more powerful strategy. So you want to say we and me, and not we and me, we and you instead of I and me, not me. Why did I say we? Yes. So you want to put you and we. So if I'm saying what I would love for you is to never stand in front of an audience and put them to sleep. What I want for you, instead of I want you to do this, I want this for you, is a great way to reframe the sentence from their point of view. Use their imagination. You can say, imagine that you were walking down the street and you fell down the subway stairs. That way they're putting themselves in the story that I was just talking about. So anytime you're crafting anything that's not just for you to read, you want to make sure you put your audience in. And if you are editing a piece that you've written, you got to scratch out the I's and me's, unless it's a story, because the story is different and it needs to be from the first person, because that can be weird. It's also weird if you get up, just as an aside, and tell someone else's story. It can work, but first person stories are much more powerful because they're yours. It's your personal story. So telling other people's stories, you can tell stories about your clients, but there's still you in there. But anyways, I just went off on a tangent. So coming back, folks, we're dialing it back. That just watch out for the I and the me and use we and you instead. Thank you. Any questions so far? Who's out there? If you are out there and I haven't had a hello from you, you could say hi, or you could ask me a question, or you could ask me how to submit what I'd love to do is get people who have presentations or speeches or pitches that they'd like me to see, and then I can review them on the show, which would be wonderful. So if you have anything like that, I do now have a submission form for that. So, I guess if I were super organized, I could put the link for that in the chat. But the question is, do I have, wait. Oh, I do have the link. I don't have, can I write in the chat? Hold on, copy. I'm going to copy it. And I don't know can I write in the chat? Where's my chat? Why do I chat? Sorry, this is still, there it is. There it is. I'm going to type you a message. Paste. This is the chat. That's the form that you can use. It's a Google form to fill out, to send me a video or written script or presentation, whatever you want, and I will review it on a future show. In the future, I'll let you know when it's going to happen. So it's not going to be like I'm just going to pop it on. I will talk to you about it and let you know. So that's kind of cool. Next up, we have number 5, overload. Too much information. TMI. I could have used TMI as my slide. TMI. It's not it's like a little different than TMI because it's not like too much information that I didn't want to know. It's way too much information that the person's sharing. They're just jamming in, they'll stand up. I'll see people who maybe give a Toastmaster speech, which is usually 5 to 7 minutes, and they're going to cram in, 10 points in there, and then they're going to try and extrapolate on those points. That was my using of the big word, extrapolate. Sounds dirty, but it means to go into detail. And you don't want to overload your audience. If you start telling them a million things, they're going to zone out. They're like, I don't even want to listen anymore. Information overload. Nobody wants that. Ain't nobody got time for that. So keep it simple. What is the antidote to overload? One of my major tips for speakers is to always have this pearl, what I call the pearl of wisdom. If your audience is going to take one thing away from what you're saying, from your video, from your speech, from your pitch, from your audiobook, whatever it is, one thing that they can walk away with, that I call the pearl. And the pearl is all that you can count on. So you want to make sure that you get to the point about what it is that I want for you, what it is I want you to get from my presentation. That pearl, that's the meat on the sandwich, and everything else that you put in your presentation supports that pearl. So you don't want to have 8 pearls. You want to have maybe 1 pearl, and then maybe, depending on the time, if you're talking for an hour, today I've got 10 pearls for you, and I'm going through each of them, but I got an hour. If you got a short amount of time, you want to have 1 pearl, and then you maybe make 3 points that relate to the pearl, that support it, that get them excited. There's some storytelling. If not, if you have 6 points and you don't have a lot of time, you want to edit it, streamline it. And the one thing that I've said to myself, I have to say it over and over and over again: don't fall in love with your own words. Cut it, cut it, cut it. That was one of my early problems when I joined Toastmasters, was like, oh my God, I've written something that's so brilliant. And I'd be like, I want to hold on to that word. And I was like, nope. Get a knife, cut it. You only want to keep the bare minimum that's going to get your point across, because they're going to stop listening. So don't do that. Don't do it. Don't fall in love with your own words. Don't be like me. Take a breath, girl. Next up, ball of confusion. I came up with this from the Temptation song. It's a ball of confusion. Some people don't make any sense when they talk. It's different than too much information. It's that the information is all jumbled and all over the place. There is no beginning, middle, and end, and it's just a mess. So they could be telling a story 1 minute, making another point. That point they go off on tangents. They're just everywhere. Then the audience looks like this, scratching their head, wondering, what are you talking about? And that is not good. And then they just pick up their phone and start scrolling because they don't even care what you're saying anymore, because you've just been so confusing to them. Now, the antidote for being a ball of confusion is to always use the basics of storytelling, which is to have your open for your presentation. You're going to say something, and then you're going to have the beginning of your story or your beginning of your presentation. You're going to have the middle bit, and then you're going to have an end, and then you're going to have a CTA, which means a call to action, and then you're going to tie it up by closing it. This is a very simple outline, but this is just the basics. There's other things. If you watched my other live stream, I look up that I have like history now. I gave a live stream on how to write a presentation a couple of weeks ago. If you watch that, you'll see that I was talking about the basic outline for a script, which has got more meat on the sandwich than this. But when I'm talking about boring your audience, you just got to open, beginning, middle, end, CTA, close. That's the basics. And they can be elaborated on. Oh, I used another big word: extrapolate, elaborate. I'm killing it with the big words, even though I don't encourage people using big words. Get in there and make sure that you're not confusing your audience. Make sure that your points don't transition off into never land. Make sure that you have transitions that make sense, that there's something for them to follow. If you're taking them on an emotional ride, you want to make sure that the emotions are strung together in a way that makes sense. It's just, don't confuse them, because once people are confused, they're gone. So don't do it, baby. Don't you do it. Number 7 is just the facts, no story. So facts and figures can be beneficial when you're talking about something that has facts and figures in it, or the bare bones, the kind of dry bits, the kind of, oh, speaking of which, I have water this week, so I'm going to have a zip. But no one wants to listen to dry stuff. What we want to hear is a story. So if you have to deliver a presentation that has a lot of dry bits in it, you want to make sure that you weave in some storytelling with it so that your audience's attention can have something delicious to hang on to. When we hear stories, we put ourselves in the story. When an audience listens to a story, it makes us it comforts us. It gives us something to follow along. So how the antidote to having just the facts is sharing your stories. Everybody has a story. Everything that you could possibly be talking about from a stage, when you're selling a product, there's always some sort of story that you can find to weave into that presentation. Whatever it is, there's got to be a story, because the story is built around whatever that pearl of wisdom is. The story says, I've been where you are. The hero story for people who are trying to sell a product is often, I've been where you are. I know what it's like for you now. I know the struggles that you have. I know the problems that you have. And then you tell the story of how you dealt with the problem, and perhaps maybe your product helped solve it, or you helped solve it, but you want to show, what you want to paint a picture for them, so that something that they can follow along with. So you want to use imagery and vocal variety and detail and specificity in your story, because it shows your humanity. It shows your foibles, your weaknesses, your vulnerability. And that helps to show the audience that you're just like them, and it helps to build trust with them, and your credibility gets built from your storytelling. People can be like, oh, I've made a gazillion dollars. I see all these people that always lead with how much money they made and how successful they were, and blah, blah, blah. And I guess there's some people who latch onto that, but it's boring if they don't actually tell you the story of the struggles that they took to get where they wound up. Yes, we want to hear your stories. And also the storytelling helps build your authority with your audience. So when I tell stories of myself being, I think I had a story for you, actually. I'm looking back at my notes, because I was going to say, yeah, I have a story. I got a little story for you. So when the first speech I ever gave, and I may have already told the story during this show, and forgive me if I have, was about Elvis Presley. And it bombed. It was the theme of 6th grade, 7th grade, was to pick a person you most admired and give a speech about him. And I chose Elvis Presley because I loved Girls, Girls, Girls and Viva Las Vegas. And I loved Elvis Presley on the 4:30 movie. I did not know he was a racist and all the other misogynists, whatever. I didn't know. I was just a kid, however. So I told that story, and it bombed. The children did not appreciate, the teacher did not appreciate my story. So there, I just wove in a little story to show that I wasn't winning it, kids. I wasn't winning it. And I remember when I was in high school, I had speech class, and I was like, I'm never going to tell a speech. I'm never going to speak. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to. I had a terrible fear of not public speaking, but being in front of an audience, which seems so crazy to me now. Look how far I've come, everyone. It's the hero journey happening right before your very eyes. But I was the shy kid in school. I was, who thought I would ever get here? No one. But the story helps build my credibility. So I was not always eloquent, and I was certainly not performing on stages in front of thousands of people as I was later in my life. But yeah, I had to start somewhere. And when you're telling that how I started story, that helps to build a connection with your audience. So always put in stories are more important than, once you have that pearl, the stories are more important than anything to me, because then they're emotional, and people can follow along, and they're going to see themselves in your story, and they're going to, connect with you. So don't just give them the facts, especially if your stuff is dry. Dry needs humor, it needs stories, it needs a lot. Because, we don't want to be boring, right? Don't bore your audience. Don't bore your audience. Don't bore your audience. Next up, we have number 8, lack of interaction. This means, so I did this, I built the slideshow. What do you think of the slideshow? I would like opinions on the slideshow, because I worked really hard on it this week. I actually didn't finish it. Well, actually, that's not a lot. I did finish it right before the presentation, but I worked on it much longer, and I think it's getting a little bit, it's growing and becoming more robust. And actually, I'm going to refer to that back in one of these other slides. In one of the next slides, I'm going to talk about how I built the slideshow. But let me know what do you think of my slideshow today. So there's a little bit, maybe I should have popped. I'm now looking at it on the background of this, of the stream thing. I'm not sure what you guys are seeing at home, whether you can see the whole background. Maybe only I can. But anyway, I think it looks good. It's coming along. So in this one, I built this chasm between this wall between the audience and the speaker, because lack of interaction will bore your audience. People they want to be engaged. Oh, you see Emma Rose, you're in the house. You see the slide. Do you see the background of the slide? Not the background behind the words, but a bigger background that has question marks in it. I don't think you do. Maybe only I do. So I won't call too much attention to that. So yes, what was I saying? So slides, hi. So you want to have interaction, because people do not want to sit in an audience and deadpan stare at someone who's talking at them and talking at them and talking at them without anything from them. The best thing, the most powerful thing I've ever done as a presenter, as a performer, as a workshop leader, as a coach, is get the audience involved in your presentations, because it's like magic powder. Oh, good. You don't see the question marks. Cool. It's like magic powder. So audience interaction is key to deboring. It's a new word I just made up. Of killing the boring from your presentations, or whatever content you're creating. So you want to make sure you add audience interaction. Now, how do you do that, Jack? Let them talk. I know it seems like a lot of speakers like to hear the sound of their own voice, but letting your audience talk is magic powder. So you could do that in an icebreaker. Sometimes when you're doing a workshop, or even when you're presenting to a big seated audience in an auditorium, you could have a warm-ups or icebreaker exercises where they get to interact with each other. You could definitely have a Q&A scattered within your presentation, if that's possible. If you're doing a webinar, definitely possible. If you're doing a live show, a live performance, a live speaking engagement, or you're doing selling, definitely have a Q&A. You could play games. People love to play games. I love playing games. So build in some games. Do something that's hands-on. I've done a lot of team building exercises, because with my chocolate business, I used to do like tastings that were team building exercises. Magic, where you get them into groups and they compete against each other. That's kind of a game. It's kind of team building. You could have interactive stations. I did this great event years ago where I did a chocolate tasting, and the game was that everyone had a passport. They were all from all over the world, and everyone had a passport. And in the passport, they had questions that they had to get answered by other people in the room. And it was like a game. It was so fun. I didn't get to play because I was working, but I thought, genius. Anytime that you can gamify your content, so there you can use quizzes, you could have a challenge. That's a great way to have interactivity. You could take a break. You give them a break so they can actually talk to each other. They could do some networking. You could use some sort of multimedia presentation. Maybe you give everybody an iPad and they're going to play a game on their iPad. I don't know. The sky's the limit. But make sure that you put some interactivity in your where you can, because that is magic. Also, it's less work for you. Yes, you have to build in the interactivity, but in the long run, you don't have to talk as much because they're talking. And when they're talking to each other, they get so jazzed up. They don't want to listen to us. They don't really even care about what we're saying. What they want to do is talk about their problems and talk and find a way for them to find solutions within the crowd. I also do these Let Me Connect You workshops where I get everyone in the room talking to each other and everybody meets everybody in the room. And it's not, I don't really have to do it. I'm just the catalyst. I'm like the ringmaster. It's like cabaret. It's Jack Cabaret. And I just lead it. And then they're so excited, because networking can be really stressful if you have to go in on your own. But if someone is leading the networking and you get to meet everybody, then it becomes like a powerhouse event, and they get to talk to each other and they get to talk about their problems and how they're going to solve them. It's magic. So I highly recommend interactivity. Next up, we have slide number 9. Oh, slides gone wild. So you got to watch your slideshows, your visuals, your presentations, things that people see, like your PowerPoints and your keynotes, because if you put too much information, you put information they can't see, you cram stuff in there, it's too hard to absorb. You got to listen to the person, and you got to see the things, and the things aren't clear, and it's just like, it's not good. So watch your slides. Now my slides, I think, came out pretty good this week. No one said anything about my slides except that they can see them. I think they're very clear. They don't have a lot of text. So let me go to the next slide. But I want you to note that you cannot really read what I put in this slide. I did that intentional, that I put on the background of that icon, because I wanted to show you that contrast. You have to have good contrast, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. So the slides have to be simple. They need to be clear. They need to have contrast, which means that the words have to pop off the screen. You don't want to have, harsh colors together. You want to make it easy for your audience to see the slides. And the slides, remember, are really just like an accent, a punctuation on what you're actually saying. So they don't need to have all the words in it. You certainly don't want to have all the words. So you want to have less words, less numbers, less bullet points. You want to summarize the text and keep it chunky into little chunks so they can read it and get the information if they need to, it's not a distraction, because if they're reading these, like paragraphs of content of words, they're not paying attention to you anymore. They're too busy reading the slides. And you want to use images where you can, whether they're photographs or GIFs or icons. I prefer icons because I like the cleanliness of an icon that says what I wanted to say without having too much distraction in the image. But I used images in this because I thought they were funny or they worked. So mix it up, always mix it up, because people will, that's a way that you entertain them. To have a mix of things, you're entertaining their senses. So like I said, visually, the people who take in information visually, and if you can add a funny picture, that also helps in a slideshow. So that's my overview of slides. Slides, make them good. Don't have them be wild. Don't have them be ineffective. Make your slides work for you. And the last, number 10, don't take offense, Emma, I know you're a teacher, but reading ain't fundamental, folks. You do not want to read your presentation. When someone is reading their presentation, their eyes are down and the audience cannot see them. When I did my first ever show, my first one-woman show, Black Pearls and Strange Fruit, the history of Black American women singers and their struggle for racial dignity, my producer, my mentor, my director said, no eyes, no contact. Eye contact is essential when you are performing. People need to see your eyes. They need to see into your eyes. You have to look at the people that you're talking to. If you are reading, you cannot. You could say, but what about the slides? The slides should not be able to be read. You should never be reading your slides either. The slides, as I said, are like an accent, a little punctuation on what you're saying. So don't read. How do you keep from reading? You have to, I took out the word. I had a word in here that said if you can't, I memorize. This is not memorized because I actually have the little slides off to the side. I have some words on the side because the way I'm presenting today. And it's kind of off the cuff because this is a live stream. But if I were actually presenting a speech, I would have it polished and memorized and practice and practice, practice. So some ways around that, if you're not a person who can memorize 16 pages, that's how many pages my Black Pearls and Strange Fruit was, 16 pages of words with this music and the songs. And it was quite a feat, but I did it. I don't know if Billy saw that show. Did you see that show, Billy? That was 1,000 years ago. You can use cue cards. So instead of reading, from the actual text and reading like paragraphs, you have index cards or cue cards that you can read from. Or I didn't even put this in there. You could use it if you're doing it online. I have a teleprompter that I use for sometimes when I'm doing like a really long course video. If it's like a half an hour, you better believe that entire thing is on a teleprompter, and I deliver it as if it's not on a teleprompter, because that is a skill that you can learn, how to look like you're not reading. That's what people who are on television shows do all the time. People who are on, morning shows, the Today Show, Good Morning America, Good Morning Australia. I'm sorry, Billy, about the Australian accent. It's terrible. I should really stop that because I can't do it. I never could. Oh, the doorbell's ringing. I don't know who it is, but we're not getting it because we have 13 more minutes of my show. It could be Amazon. So cue cards, so cue cards are great. Cue cards, index cards, you can outline. I'll tell you a little trick that I've used when I'm performing is I write the outline and I put it on the floor. So I'm singing, like if I need to remember which songs are in which order, or if I have notes, I outline them on a piece of paper and then I put them on the floor where only I can see them, so I can follow along just in case I have like a big show like Chalk Cabaret where I had storytelling and I had to hit certain marks with each chocolate company and tell, it was all woven singing and all these different parts. I've outlined my entire show and put it on the floor. So because I'm on stage, I'm the only one who can see it. When I'm on a computer like this, I have an outline to the side, or I could use a teleprompter if I wanted to, but I chose not to today because this is a live stream and it needs to be a little bit more impromptu. So I don't use it for this. However, I'm not answering the door. I don't know who that is. I can't believe you're interrupting my live stream. There's nobody here but me. But remember, whatever method you use, you want to practice, 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 and then practice some more. A lot of people ask me, how much practice do you need? I said, as much as it takes for you to get it. Oh, it's not. Oh, you saw Chalk Cabaret, Eleanor. Ellie saw Chalk Cabaret. I don't know. Emma saw the fried chicken show, I'm pretty sure, back when she was a child. So I got some fans in the audience. So practice. That's the key to delivering without boring your audience, and also not reading. You do not want to read. Don't be reading. So, but you do want to read the room. This is very important. When you are presenting live in front of an audience, there is going to be people. Who the hell is this reading? Hold on. Now they're being really annoying. Oh, damn it. I have to get the phone. Hello? Hello? Is it Elba? Okay. 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 I'm doing a show, so I'm on the internet right this second. Are you here? Okay. I will come and run up and get. Okay. No worries. A little early. Okay. Thank you. I'll be there in a minute. Bye. Bye. Okay. So it's my cleaner who I gave a bunch of clothes to today, and they said they were coming at 7:30, and we all know it's not 7:30 now. So I got to go. You wait. I'm going to finish the show. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to run to the door and give them this bag of clothes. Isn't show business fun? I'll be right back, y'all. Entertain yourselves. I'm back. I'm back. Well, that's never happened before. Where is Paul? No, it's funny because they said they were coming at 7:30. Show business, folks. So where was I? I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to say, read the room. So when you're presenting live on stage, you get this wonderful opportunity to look in the faces of all the people that you're presenting to. Yay! Some people find it terrifying. I understand that. But when you're looking in their faces, you can tell whether or not they're awake, whether or not they're paying attention, whether they're on their phone, whether they're just like nodding out or, picking their nails or whatever they could be doing. If you see that the audience is not paying attention, you got to do something. You got to pivot because that means you're losing the room. Now, one person not paying attention, you can live with that. But if you got a lot of people in the audience, you might be boring them. If you got a lot of people who are not paying attention, it could be you. So you got to pivot. And how do you pivot? You got to do something different. You got to do anything to get their attention back. So it's sort of like the first attention grab that you did when you opened your presentation is the same thing you've got to do if you lose the room. So change your voice. That'll shock them. That'll scare them. You could pair them together and get them to say something to each other. Get them like you do in church. Turn to your neighbor and say hi. You do it that way. You could move them. You could get them. You could see that you're losing the room, and you'd be like, "Okay, everybody, snap to it. Everybody, let's get up and do the wave. Do the wave, or stretch, or do a little bit of chair yoga. I'm loving this stretch. I've been going to the gym, and I kind of love this stretch where you kind of pull your head. So you want to do something to snap them back into your grip. You could tell a story. You could get them talking to each other, like I said. You could do paired sharing. You could ask them a question. Questions are great. You could pick on a single person in the audience and ask them to say anything. It's be like, who can tell me what I was just talking about? You could quiz them. You could get them up to take a break. There's many ways to pivot, but you've got to have something up your sleeve. What I coach speakers to do is have some things that are related to the that pearl of wisdom that I talked about before, the thing that you want them to remember. Have things that are related to the pearl up your sleeve so that you can pull it out if you're losing them. The other thing you can do is move around yourself. Now, people sitting at, especially if they're like sitting in an auditorium, if they're just looking at you and maybe you walk from side to side on the stage, but if you get off that stage and walk all the way around the room talking to them, provided that you have, a radio mic, because you're not going to walk away. Well, you could. I've seen people who are like, hold that thought, and they're going to run around the room to get their attention or to do something that's related to their speech. Moving yourself can also be a good way to pivot and get them focusing on something else. And when you move around the room, they're going to look. So they're going to actually move themselves. So that's another way. There's many ways to pivot, but you just have to make sure before you present that you have a few things up your sleeve in case you lose the room. You could lay down on the stage. You could throw a temper tantrum. Why aren't you paying attention to me? Look at me, look at me. What's that show, that movie? Look at me, look at me. I say that to Paul when I'm annoyed with him. I'm like, look at me. And he's like, nope, nope, nope. So you want to pivot. I have 5 minutes left, kids. I better speed up the end of this. See, Emma's setting a temper tantrum. Kath and Kim had a temper tantrum. So to recap, my friends, don't be boring. Never be boring. Never be boring. Never be boring. I've already gone over. And I'm going to say it a million more times if you watch this live stream, but I'm not going to say it again today. I'm not saying it. We went over the 10 ho-hums that I know Kath and Kim is a TV show. The 10 ho-hums is failure to grab, irrelevant information, you're talking to the wrong audience, flat sack, which is not what you think it is. It means that you are talking in a very flat way and you have no passion and you don't have any interest. You're just completely losing the audience because you're talking in a way that is completely boring. I said boring again. Me, which means you're talking in the eye. Oh, Kath and Kim. Oh, that was Kath and Kim. Thank you, Emma. Overloading, giving them way too much information at once, too much stuff. Don't do that. Ball of confusion, saying things, putting your presentation in a way that doesn't make any sense. You know, your stories, everything's mixed up. It's going all over the place. There's not a beginning, a middle, and an end. Don't be a ball of confusion. Just the facts, not having any stories. We talked about that at length. You want to have stories because it pulls your audience in. You don't want to have crazy slides. You don't want slides going wild. And you want to, this is my typo. I found this after I processed this. Reading ain't fundamental. What I meant was reading ain't, not reading eight. You can tell I did that verbally. So the computer heard me say eight instead of ain't, but it is, don't read your slides. Don't read your presentation. Engage your audience with your eyes. Learn your material. And what I also tell people is to learn, if you drying is when you get up on stage and you're about to speak and you don't remember what you were going to say and you're like go into a panic. If you super memorize the pearl of your presentation, you can riff if you know that like the back of your hand. So even if you forget everything else or forget what you were going to say, remember two things. Know that pearl, and also no one but you knows what you were going to say. So you don't need to stress out about it so much. Just keep talking about the thing that keep talking about how you're going to solve their problem, and you'll be fine. So that's the recap on that. And lastly, read the room, and pivot. So, my God, I talked for an hour again. So if you're in the audience and you are not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. That's my LinkedIn profile. I'm pretty sure I'm just Jackie Gordon on LinkedIn. I think I was the first Jackie Gordon on LinkedIn, which sounds kind of crazy to me, but I have been on it for 14 years, even though I've only just shown up again after my 5 posts in 14 years, and now I post every day. So hook up. Come meet me there, follow me there, look for me there, and we can be friends. I don't know, follows, I don't know whether friends, follows, fans, I don't know, but connect with me on LinkedIn. And does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any questions that are not related to what I was talking about that have to do with speaking to sell or engaging your audience or entertaining your audience, or I don't know, what are you having for dinner? Anything. It could be anything. I'll answer any questions. It's that time in the show where I will give out any sort of advice. I actually found the photo the other day of Bev Killick and I in Washington Square Park with a woman who was holding the sign, and it didn't say answer lady. It said ask. She was the advice lady. It said, it just said, she had a sign and she was sitting there, it said advice. Emma has a question. Do you think that it's better? Oh, I can actually bring the question. Ooh, there's a way apparently I can show the question. Do you think it's better for your audience to be close together or far apart? Do you mean from you or from each other? If you mean from you, no. And if you mean from each other, no. I guess the answer is the same no matter what the question is. You want your audience to be together so they can bond with each other. We're humans, we like to be near each other. And you also want your audience you want them to be near each other, especially if you're going to do any sort of interactive between each other. So if you're going to do paired sharing, you need them to be sitting next to each other. Otherwise, them being too far, you don't want to be chasms of space between them, because that might make them, it's better to be cozy and close to each other, because that's how we sort of roll. We roll in packs as humans, we roll in packs. So I think it's better that they're actually not only close to each other, but close to you. And I do recommend actually going into the audience if you have the opportunity, if your audio won't go out, get in there. We're humans. We want to interact with each other. We're washing clothes down by the riverside, so we do these things together, and it works. The togetherness works. The space is not, it's not conducive to making that human connection. So that's my official answer. And it is now 7:02. It's 7:02, and I'm going to close I got an extra couple of minutes because I was, off to answer the door for the cleaning people. Thank you guys for your patience and for your questions and for being here. And I will be back next week. If you have a theme that you want me to expound, there's another one. I said extrapolate. I said another one, elaborate. And now I'm saying expound upon. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can certainly talk. I can talk about anything related to people who rely on speaking to sell, or engaging your audience, or getting paid, how to shake people up and down and get the money out of them, anything. So thank you. And I will catch you later. Have a good